Hola mis amores, welcome to the Get Unstuck podcast, a show that teaches you how you can take control of your life so you can let go of the weight of disappointments and release the emotional baggage holding you hostage. I'm your host, Nori Pouncil, a Garifuna Afro-Latina Get Unstuck coach, helping millennial women feeling stuck get out of their heads and overcome their paralysis by getting to know themselves. This is where you learn how to become the woman you want to be, so you can love yourself no matter what, confidently know exactly who you are, have full clarity on what you want, and fearlessly step into your purpose. In today's episode, I am so excited to share part one of a two-part conversation with my husband, my bae, my biggest cheerleader, my biggest hater, Gerard Pouncil. JP helps ambitious Black millennials kickstart their dream consulting business and ditch the 9-to-5 rat race so they can gain confidence and clarity, avoid rookie mistakes, develop laser focus, and get clients. During this conversation, JP shares his perspective on what it was like to support me during the death of my favorite uncle and my struggles with depression. He opened up about his own struggles with depression, and he shared why he didn't think I needed to go to therapy. And he also tells us why 2018 was his best year ever. Let's get started. Hi.
Hey.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you for coming.
I live here. Wasn't too much of an ask, you know?
Oh, I appreciate it when you're available. I know your schedule's pretty busy.
So busy.
I'm just grateful that you share space with me. Thanks.
Be here all week.
So, hi, listeners. Today on the podcast, I have a treat for y'all. Y'all been asking.
Nice little snack.
A little snack. Y'all been asking for this man to come on here. I don't know why. I don't know what you want to know about him, but Mr. Pouncil, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey.
I wish I had like my DJ equipment
Glad
already.
to be here. Soon enough, you will be a DJ.
Hi, husband.
Hi, wifey.
So on today's episode, I'm going to be talking to Mr. Pouncil about my journey and his perspective, his experience. A lot of us don't hear too much about the male side often because we're probably not listening, but sometimes we're listening. Sometimes they just say silly things that we don't want to listen to. But I wanted to spend some time talking to Bae because a lot of changes have happened in my life over the past year since the season 1 of the podcast. And I wanted to talk to him and get his thoughts, and that's why he's here.
Welcome.
Welcome to me. To you.
Welcome to my podcast. This is officially
your podcast.
My podcast now.
All right.
So where do I start?
You can start right now.
All right.
Go ahead.
Well, you gotta tell me you're the director, right? I'm just showing up.
This is really what our relationship is like. So if you ever wondered what this is like, this is an example of exactly what it's like. So last year, a lot happened last year.
Was I on the podcast last year?
You weren't on the podcast last year. You did not come on season 1.
Okay.
You decided that it was not your thing.
Do your listeners know who I am? Do I need to give any
Introduce
background?
yourself.
Yeah, I guess
Introduce
that's
yourself.
Appropriate for the moment.
Go ahead.
Quick bio on JP.
Oh, Lord.
Full name, Gerard Pouncil. Originally from Flint, Michigan. Got a couple degrees in engineering. I like technology, working with my hands, putting together puzzles, things like that. So what I do now is I have a coaching business where I help people accelerate their financial independence through one-on-one business coaching, working with Black millennials specifically.
He likes long walks in the park.
And the beach.
A lot of broccoli.
Lots of broccoli.
And salmon. Wild caught.
Got to stay slim, right?
You already know.
Beach body season is almost here.
It's always beach body season for us,
exactly.
Because if you missed it, we moved to Florida. So
that did happen last year.
When I dropped season 1 last year, we were living in DC, and now we live in Florida. How has the transition been for you?
It's been probably the best year ever.
Oh,
can I say that off the bat? Just
go ahead,
boom.
Claim it. Done.
Yeah. Well, I've been working to make every year better. It's always been about improvement for me. It's what's next, which I'm trying to get out of a little bit, slow down a little bit, but I've always been about pushing myself and seeing, can we take it to the next level?
Mm-hmm.
And I believe in 2018, we did just that. A lot of things people said we couldn't do, although a lot of people did say we could do it. We figured it out on our own, and now we're, quote unquote, living the dream, I guess. a little bit.
It's not quote unquote. It's pretty real to me. So whatever. So in this episode, I wanted to just kind of get your perspective on what it was like to be my partner during some of the past few years of my life.
Okay.
Starting 2016 with death of my uncle Khalifa, which, you know, by you, I literally mean him. My husband is across from me. How Khalifa and I were really close. So what was it like for you when I first got the news? Like, I know what it was like for me, but what was it like for you to see me in that space? Because we hadn't experienced a death like that in our marriage at the time.
All right. And I think you initially called me.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you called me, you were maybe still at work or had already made it home. Now still at work.
I was home. I was home because I got the news at home.
Okay. And so immediately after I found out, like, hey, I got to go. And when I came home, you were like laying on the middle of the floor crying. And I wasn't necessarily shocked, but you know, I'm like, babe, come on, let's get up off the floor. Let's have a seat. Let's actually relax in a comfortable position. This is going to be a hard time enough. You don't have to be on the floor for it. So,
but the floor felt like the safest place at that time.
You felt grounded, and you know the ground's not going to move from underneath you like anything else in the world. Makes sense.
Right.
Makes sense. But for me, you know, the only other person in my life whose death kind of hit me was my grandfather's.
Mm-hmm.
So me, myself personally, I am less acceptable to, I don't want to say emotions, but I tend to think about a lot of these things in advance. So I've thought about a lot of death and try to kind of put it in perspective, you know, throughout my life. So when these things happen, of course they happen. Of course, family members die. You know, my experience has been, you know, for me, it's been a little bit easier than others to push through. But working with you or being with you.
Hold on. Why is that? Why has it been like that? Why has that been your experience?
The part being a bit easier to push through?
Yeah, in your opinion.
I just think I have a unique skill to kind of think through a lot of different patterns and situations and kind of put them in perspective. I'm also very real. I look at data and, you know, I try not to be scared of things. So by confronting them earlier and often and getting comfortable when they happen, it's not such a big shock to the system.
Right. Okay. So you were saying.
So when, you know, living with you, it's the first time I had ever, it's not the first time I've been someone who had a large significant death. Someone I had talked to before previously, their mother had died and I had went through that situation. So, you know, I did have some experience with that and going through that. Yeah.
I didn't know that until today. As per usual, learning things in the podcast. Per usual.
Yeah, people die every day.
Every day, B.
Every day. So when it came to you, of course, obviously it was different for us, and I had never seen you like that. You know, you were really fragile at that moment, and really were looking for a way to just kind of cope. So for me, I just had to really, you know, try to just be there for you, understand where you're as best as I can, and not trying to put, you know, myself on a situation and tell you how I operate, because that wasn't going to get you to where you needed to be. So it was really more about me being there and just listening and, you know, kind of taking in what you were giving or willing to give about the whole situation at that point.
What was the hardest part for you, if any?
Probably maybe going once we got to Honduras and, you know, being like, seeing everybody in the family was fun, but like actually going through the funeral stuff and, you know, kind of, it was a lot of family were, you know, had a hard time even, you know, a year later. Was that a year later when we went?
Yeah. So to give people a little bit of context, when my uncle was killed, I went to Honduras and I went by myself. You were not able to travel with me. And a year later, we do a number of Garifuna traditions to honor the life of the person that passed. And at that time, we went together. And that's the occasion in which you're referring to right now.
I would probably actually say not being able to go was probably the harder part, because, you know,
really?
I wanted to be there, but, you know, we had jobs and you know, our situations didn't allow, but, you know, that was probably, looking back on it, one of the hardest parts.
If you could have done things differently, would you have gone?
Yeah.
You would have gone. Yeah, it would have been nice to have you there if we could, but, you know, we moved on now, so it's fine. So you talked about how fragile I was, and I think I didn't really realize how fragile I was myself when I was kind of going through it, because when you're in it, you know, you're going through the motions. Like, I'm getting the news the same day. I'm like booking flights to go to Honduras. I'm back. Like, everything is moving so fast. And for you as a partner, how did it feel to to see your wife like that?
It felt new because I hadn't seen anyone go through it like that. They had that other death, but this wasn't a murder. This wasn't, an intentional killing of someone, of a loved one, particularly someone, for you who meant so much, not having your father around as much as gentleman or your uncle being, your father. And we relate, on that aspect of having those strong male influences that aren't our father. So I definitely really understood why it was such a big deal for you. And I had met him too, and that was, of all the people, like when we're hanging out, it's like, all right, yeah, that's who we hanging out with, is we're hanging out with your uncle.
The life of the party.
Right.
Yeah. It's interesting because as I hear you sharing your perspective, I'm realizing that I never really asked these questions before. Like life just happened. We were going through it and it just kind of continued going. And I never really stopped to process and even question your perspective as far as like understanding the emotions you were going through. How was it for you? Like not in relation to me, but just JP on your own. Like, did you have any feelings about it on your own, or was everything in relation to me and to my experience?
No, I was numb.
You were saying?
I was actually feeling kind of numb, or I was numb when you actually first told me, because I'm sitting at my desk like, what? Like sitting looking at the screen and just being like, how could this happen? Like, right, like this is like, why? I think did you even have a trip already planned maybe to go, or we were?
No, we were going, my parents were moving to Honduras.
Yeah. And so he was a big part of the plans and the move. So it was just like, that's a lot of assumptions that we had made at that point of things that were going to be taken care of that, well, no.
They weren't because he was, with my parents moving, he brought a lot of peace of mind to you and I, particularly to me, because a lot of how my parents, I've been there for them as that emotional and financial support in the past. So with him being home and my parents moving to Honduras, we just felt like it was going to be okay because he was there. And now they hadn't even left yet. And now this situation happened. So interesting. It's interesting to hear how you felt about it, considering that I never asked. So after Khalifa's death, I went through what I would later realize that was depression. I was going through a really tough time. Did you know I was depressed? Like, were you like, yo, is she depressed?
No. If you would have asked me, JP, without you telling me, no. Still, sometimes when you say it, I was depressed. I'm like, really? I didn't. From the outside, it didn't look like it at all. You were still going about it. Obviously the death was hanging over you, but depression, I don't necessarily can't say I know what depression looks like, but from what I've seen, just on TV and whatnot, that I didn't think you were that. But I guess this goes to say you never know what's going on with people. Just from the outside, people cover up things very well, as we've learned in our work.
And we were living together too. So the fact that we were living under the same roof and yet you didn't see that. Do you think that it was because I wasn't vocal about it, or were you available to seeing that I was going through that?
Yeah, I might not even, I don't know if I don't know what it looks like, I've never really been around anyone who's gone through depression, at least knowingly, so it's a little difficult for me to identify with that. And particularly, I don't, or can't recall too many occasions in my life where I've been to a point where I say I've been depressed, maybe like once in college. But
really?
Yeah.
Can we talk about that?
You can talk about whatever you want.
When were you depressed?
When I was probably a junior and was getting like deep into my electrical engineering courses in undergrad, and just didn't like what I was doing and really wanted to go do something else. When really thought hard about doing economics or transferring or switching out and doing something else. But when I thought about it and looked at how much work I had to do, if I would have switched, I would have lost time. And it's like, okay, well, how can I make this to my best? What can I do in this situation? And eventually figured it out, talked to some people, and actually talked to one of the counselors at the school about the whole situation, talked to my mom about it, and kind of eventually said, okay, well, once I figured it out and once I make up my mind, I'm just like, okay, well, there's no need to feel like that anymore because you know what you got to do. So,
So how are you feeling?
wasn't happy. Wasn't happy with what I was doing. Wasn't necessarily like I could do the work. It wasn't that. So I mean, I eventually just like, all right, let's do it, and sucked it up and finished out. But I knew wasn't what I was going to do long term, and so was kind of thinking this maybe I should get out of this earlier than later because going into engineering, that's a degree that you can use in pretty much going into anything after that. So it's not like it's unuseful. It's not like a degree that's really specialized. People from engineering go on to open businesses, go on to med school, become lawyers, all types of stuff. So, I had options. And so just kind of looking at that whole situation made it easier for me. I'm very analytical. So once I talk through the situation to myself and outline the different paths, I'm pretty, and select the best one, it's pretty much, all right, let's get back to where we want to be because we know what we got to do.
Well, since now it's been discovered that you struggle with depression at some point, what lessons would you say you learned from that experience? What are some of the things that to you stick out that kept you from getting back in that space?
Being more and doing exactly what I want to do, and making sure I'm not like tied down. So with that, it was 5 years. Or 4.5, 5 years of school. And it's like, okay, well, I can't really just start that over. I've already paid this money.
Right.
So I kind of need to finish this. So, but after that, I was never really in that situation where I had to do something. Like I didn't have to go to grad school. I got my master's. I didn't go get my PhD because I didn't want to do that things anymore or continue to go to school anymore because I wanted to go do something else. So keeping my options open and making sure that I just don't peg myself down into one area.
Would you say that you have some sort of commitment issues?
I have trust issues.
Ooh, where do those stem from?
Trust issues stem from working with people and on teams, growing up, and people not pulling their weight, being the person that usually is doing most of the work, and if not leading, giving direction, or like the last check before everything's saying, okay, we're good.
Right.
So,
would you say that part of your relationship with your own father is at play with some of the stress issues too, or not?
Yeah, there were incidents with my father who my parents got a divorce when I was, second grade, second grade, and he would tell us that he's coming to visit or he's coming to pick us up, and he wouldn't show up. I tell you all the time, there was one incident when we were living together, we were married, and we were in this bowling league, and it was the last week of the bowling.
Yeah, you still have to work through this one. This one still triggers you.
It was the last week of the bowling, and he was coming home to pick me up from work, and he didn't show up. And we went to the awards banquet next week, and we were in second, third place, trying to get first place that week before, and then after that, we had basically fell down to the bottom. I had won some awards too, but it still was like that
you
overall.
Been up there.
Right. And so it had to be like, if it was like 8 teams, it was like we're in like 7th place. Whew. And my uncle and cousin were in the league too. So, and I'm like, bruh,
really?
Can't let these dudes beat us, man. Come on. So, but yeah, just not feeling like people put as much effort into things as I do, which as I have gotten older, I found out that, that is true. Not everybody can or wants to.
Not everybody wants that smoke, baby.
That stuff, right? So I think that's where a lot of that comes from. There was some group projects in high school where I just told the teacher, I'm not working with anybody. So you're going to give me a solo project. This was senior year, and he didn't want to do it. And I was like, I'm not working with anybody. So and he gave me the project. So.
I mean, after all, weren't you a Bill Gates scholar? So it's not like you didn't.
But I told you I was falling asleep in his class.
Secured.
I did.
Oh, was this the guy that you were telling me about?
Yeah, this was yes. I was too busy, so my life pooped out in his class, and a lot of times I fell asleep. He didn't like it.
You were pushing it. You were. My life pooped out. Okay.
It was busy.
Well, thank you for sharing all of this. Every time I talk to someone that I love on the podcast, I learn some information that I'm like, this is the first time I'm hearing about this. Tends to be because this is the first time I asked. So,
and honestly, that's really the only time
That you felt like that before.
I felt like that, yeah.
Did you feel like that after Nesby, after you didn't win chair?
No, I didn't. After I didn't win chair, I cried at the airport.
Give people a little bit of context on that story.
So in 2000, what year is that now? Lord.
It had to be 2008.
10, I was in grad school.
Okay.
So 2010, I was the current national vice chair of the National Society of Black Engineers and was running for national chair. That year was a very spirited debate. There were like 5 gentlemen running for chair. And this was really my first time having to do stuff that involved the running for a chair. Like when I ran on the regional level, it wasn't really a whole lot that you really had to do. And then when I ran for vice chair, it was uncontested. So it was a real, my national chair was my real first campaign. And, going back on it, where there's some things I may have done differently, talked to a few more people.
I mean, you lost
in my
so
demographic. Yeah. But, if I would have won, I may not be here talking to you right now.
You may not
about it.
Your wife. Yeah.
So that's all about the feedback. What was the original question? Oh, we were just talking about the
original question was if you felt any instance of depression during that time, because I know that's
that was a big goal. That was probably, and that was one thing I didn't have another chance to go after because as grad school was going over and you have to be still a student to do it, and I wasn't going to get my PhD. So, that night we're still in Toronto. I'm like, we're about to have a good time. But yeah, at the airport when leaving, it was like, damn, I really wanted that. But I left those tears in Toronto and moved on.
What do you contribute your resiliency to? Like your ability to say, I left those tears in Toronto. And like, I don't know that. Yeah, that wouldn't have been me in the past. Like me now, yeah, but me then, absolutely not.
I try everything. I try, and I'll try a lot. So I want to try everything, and I know that I'm not going to be great at everything, and I'm going to fail. That was probably, quote unquote, the biggest failure, But, playing with Legos and toys and things, destroying stuff, building it up, never really getting used to something being one way, experimenting all the time, knowing that things don't always go your way. That's kind of just been, me my whole life. And when you play sports, you're going to win some games, you're going to lose some games. Sometimes I come in, I say I got these dubs, and sometimes I'm like, nah, babe, I got all the L's today. But I come in and I'm happy that I just got the workout, and I'm happy that I just had that experience to go out and do stuff that I love. So that's how I'm able to leave the tears in Toronto. I've been able to leave tears in maybe some other, not tears, but hard feelings in some other places as well. But,
okay. So when I was depressed, to kind of return to this story,
all right,
I told you I was going to, after, I think you said something to me that triggered me getting into therapy. It was something on the lines of like, I don't think your uncle would have wanted this for you or something. Like, you can't keep doing this. Something along those lines that you said to me. And I was like, you know what? He's right. Like, I have to honor my uncle's legacy or something like that. And I remember that he used to always tell me that he wanted me to do what brought me joy, what brought me happiness, and not to care about society, but kind of do my own thing. And that led me into going in that journey and feeling like maybe I do need to talk to a therapist. Like, my friends are kind of over it a little bit. My husband is a little over it. And I don't want to say over it like, y'all didn't want to help me. I really think that it was more so that y'all didn't know how to help me. Like, you guys wanted to help me, but I didn't know what I needed. I didn't know how to ask for the help. And I even remember us having conversations around, well, what do you need from me? How do you need me to support you? And me being like, I don't know, my guy. Like, I don't know what to tell you. And I think around that same time, you were trying to optimize yourself too. And you even asked me like, well, I need you to do these things for me. And I remember looking at you and being like, I don't even got it for me. Like, you want me to help you optimize yourself? I don't even know how to get myself to start breathing regularly. Like,
right. I'm depressed over here, dude. Like, come on now.
But that's how blinded you were. Like, you just didn't know. And again, it's not so much that you didn't want to know. I think part of it, you weren't available. You didn't know what to look for, and you're very solution oriented. So if you don't feel like you can fix it, it's kind of like, all right, I'm leaving it alone for now until I can fix it. So I remember telling you that I was going to go see a therapist. And at the time, I didn't really think you were supportive. Why was that? Like, full transparency, he was like, I think you could do this on your own. I don't think you need to talk to somebody.
I just thought that you had the skills and the equipment to do it on your own.
Mm-hmm.
I figured, once again, me, from my experience, I had been able to handle whatever was thrown at me.
Right.
And, once again, my personal experience, I had never been anyone who had like died of depression. So I figured, people just kind of figure it out. And I know people do go talk to people, but I didn't know that you had all this other things inside that you weren't necessarily getting out.
Right. And I think a huge part as to why I didn't probably share that stuff with you was because I felt like you weren't going to get it. And then when you said the thing about me seeing a therapist, I was like, he definitely not going to get it. Don't even say nothing about none of this. So I just didn't. And that became the role of my therapist. She was the one that had to hear some of these things that I was going through. And she made me feel like I was heard. Like, she made me feel like I wasn't tripping. She made me feel like I wasn't overreacting. And she made me understand that my pain was valid in a way and that I didn't have to defend it to heal from it. Because until that point, I felt like I needed to defend that how I was feeling was a real thing. And that I had to defend that he was hard for me. But at the same time, I felt like he shouldn't be hard for me because I'm me. We laugh now, but I'm so serious.
That's what I be saying.
I'm like, I should be able to get through this stuff. But at the same time, it was really hard because I just felt like I was really alone in it. And then I felt like you weren't there for me in the way that I wanted you to be. But at the same time, I didn't know how to ask you to be that person either. So it's not like I was blaming you for it at the same time. If that makes any sense. So looking back at it now, first of all, why were you so like against the therapist thing? Because you really were not for it. I don't know if you remember how I remember
being
it.
against the therapist. Like I said, I just remember saying, I think you can have it on your own. I know my sister had gone to therapy before, and I know other people, so it wasn't nothing against therapists per se.
It was just you, like, you got it, babe.
Yeah.
Okay. So I go to therapy. We start talking about some of these things. Did I talk to you about this at all when I was in therapy, or did I?
Yeah, you did.
I did talk to you about some of this stuff, right? What was that process like to hear the things that I had going on that I had not been sharing?
Educational. And I always have questions. So you would come back from your appointments and I would actually want to know, hey, what you guys talk about? Like what are some of the things, some of the strategies that you're learning to deal with this, to help you move along in your process? What kind of characteristics does the therapist have that you like? What is it about her communication style that gets through to you? Because I really, pretty much in everything, really trying to learn particularly more about people and how they operate.
It's interesting because I remember when you were asking about that, in the back of my mind, I'm like, he wanted none of that shit.
As you know, I always have the initial pushback, the initial no, which is more like, let me think about it. And then if it's happening, I'm going to like, all right, well, what's going on? It's happening. It's not like I can escape it. Might as well embrace it and learn everything you can about it.
Okay. Whatevs. So we go through the process. I go through therapy, and then I tell you, I'm going to stop seeing this therapist. Do you remember me telling you that I was going to stop seeing her?
No.
Okay, so I can't really ask you what your thoughts were on it because you don't even remember me saying that to you. Did you have any thoughts when you were like, did at any point you question why I wasn't seeing the therapist anymore, or you probably feel like I had it together?
No, I figured you had it together.
Yeah. Of course you did.
Because if you didn't, why would you stop going?
Why would you stop going to therapy? It turns out I didn't have it together. It turns out that I felt that therapy was a bit incomplete for me. I felt that the therapist was teaching me strategies to manage the depression, but I wanted to get to the bottom of the depression. And the therapist couldn't really do that for me. At least not the specific therapist I was working with, at least not in the allotted 45 minutes that she had set for me once a week or however long I was going to see her. And She also was really busy. Like there's a lot of people need therapy. So so the woman had a very busy calendar, if we're going to be honest. And I kind of just, after the new year came in, I'm like, I think I need a break from this. I think I got it from here. Like I don't have the answers yet, but I can figure it out the rest on my own right now. So we go on this journey to figure out how to exit this depression for good. And we begin reading a lot of books. I mean, at the time you weren't reading to figure out my depression, but we just got really heavy into reading, and I got really involved into wanting to get answers around what I was feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And what was that process for you, like going from the extreme side of things after Khalifa's death and kind of being in depression, and then seeing the evolution as time went on?
I would say I saw you gaining strength along at each step. And as you gain more knowledge and were able to talk to more people about it, and starting to talk more about it in your work and talking about it with friends and family, that you took it as something that wasn't necessarily a good thing in your life,
mm-hmm.
but you were able to leave those tears in DC. And when we moved here, kind of be totally, I won't say totally over that stuff, but not looking back at it, not
mm-hmm.
looking at it holding you back, and not letting that event continue to define,
mm-hmm.
what you're going to be.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I've never heard you talk about this before, obviously, because as we have previously
We're
stated,
too busy having fun. We don't talk about depression.
We don't talk about
in the bedroom.
Okay. All right. Settle down. Relax. Interesting. And what was it for you transitioning? So January last year, to give people a little bit of somewhat of context in timeline.
We said we out.
We said we were going to leave DC. And by April 25th, we were in our apartment in St. Petersburg, Florida, where this podcast is currently being recorded. Did you struggle with that at all? Like, what was happening with you internally? Because I know I have my own stuff going on, so I didn't really have the space to be asking you about you like that.
Uh-huh.
But what was going on? Like, were you good?
When I made this, or when I was sitting back at work, when we came back to the job in 2018, beginning of the year, like that first week, and I sat down at my desk and I was like, nah, B, this ain't gonna work.
January 4th, you sent me a text.
January 4th.
And you were like, let's move to Atlanta. And the night before, as early as the night before, or the 2 nights before, I had a conversation with you about us moving, and you were like, I'm not ready to do that. We haven't made any plans. There's no backup plan. You jumped into fight or flight mode, and you were like, no. Let's discuss it later. And I was feeling a little defeated because I'm like, yo, bro, like I've been ready to go, and I'm trying to tell you, let's go. And you're like, I'm not ready to go. So now we're not going because, we are a partnership. So then you text me 2 days later, talk about let's move to Atlanta. First, I rolled my eyes and then I busted out laughing. What prompted that text?
Me sitting at my desk, not wanting to be there. We had a course that we were doing over the break, and it just felt really good to work on my own stuff for 2 weeks, pretty much over the break, and like having that focus and that dedication to doing something for myself. And I was like, no, I need to do this now. And it wasn't something that I knew was going to happen one day. So I had always had plans in my life to be a entrepreneur and do things on my own. So when you said it, or having those couple of days before, I turned around and texted you back.
Is that your mandatory grace period?
I was going to say, I told you, it's again, as we've learned, you got to tell me to think about things first, because initially I'm like, nah, B.
Okay. Is that 48 hours that I need to keep in mind?
It's not 48 hours for everything.
All right. But minimum, let's just be safe, 48 hours.
If it's a tattoo, you just need to sprinkle that a little bit sooner.
Okay. So you were like, I'm not doing this. I'm done.
Yeah, I'm done. And it was really just figuring out how much money we needed to move, and would the money we had saved, how long would that allow us to go for? What was our runway for what we're trying to do? Yeah. Then after that, I've probably the most uncomfortable part, as with most things, is the the unknown, not knowing exactly where you're going. But I had worked in Agile and software and worked on being Agile and doing software practice. So I knew how to iterate my ideas, how to improve them, how to get data from what I've done and make the product even better. So that wasn't going to be an issue. More so probably finding exactly what I wanted to do. And after that, it was just no looking back. Let's do it.
Did you have any anxiety around how long was it going to take us to make money? How we were going to figure that out? Like, yeah, we basically left. We literally packed our apartment into our truck, and by our truck, I mean the truck that we rented, and came down here. Did you have any feelings or anxiety around those questions about money, particularly? We will be right back after this brief message. Hola, mis amores. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Get Unstuck podcast. I love having these conversations because they help shed light on the issues many millennial women feeling stuck are struggling with on a daily basis as they look for ways to overcome their paralysis. Can you do me a favor? If you find this episode helpful, please leave me a review and tell me what connected with you about this conversation. It will help me bring you guests that you're going to love, and you may catch your thoughts during our fan love segment. Now back to the episode.
At times, but then I remind myself I have more already saved. So it's like, okay, put it in perspective. So I would get anxious around money, especially when the little batch we took out would run out. But it's like, why are you even feeling like that? You have the savings. You had it for a reason. So just let it be used for, why you saved it. So, and I think it's just a little bit natural to have that anxiety. Of all people, I'm really low on anxiety. Like I don't get anxious too often. Probably the most anxious I got during this whole process was actually driving with all our stuff in the truck to it.
You were?
Me and driving, I don't have to drive. Like I'm not
Yeah, you don't like driving.
I do it because I have to, or I had to, but if I don't have to drive, I rather not.
And I want to give the listeners a little bit of context because I don't know what y'all thinking about right now. But when we moved here, I know you've heard things like money and anxious around money and savings. So I wanted to be transparent about that because people glorify the entrepreneurship journey sometimes, and they don't think about what it really takes to make it happen. So when we moved here, we had some savings. How much money have we saved? We had savings. How much money have we saved to move here?
Which, including the retirement?
No, not including the retirement, just including savings.
We probably had, with my bonus, like 20.
So we left DC. And when we left DC, I want to be clear, we left our jobs at the time. And there was no job waiting for us in the traditional context in St. Petersburg. Right. So I want to be very transparent about that. We leave DC officially unemployed, and we get to Florida, and we don't have a job or a source of income automatically.
Right.
And so we had about $20,000 in savings. What did it look like for us as far as the retirement piece?
Probably had maybe $200K.
About $200K.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So coming in, we were good. Good, sure, being a term we'll use in this specific sentence. And it's because JP had really pressed me from the beginning to put away 15% of my paycheck into a retirement account. And he was doing this back when we were dating. This didn't start when we got married.
Right, because I had always planned to do this.
Right.
So it wasn't, and that may be why I wasn't as anxious either, because I've pretty much been planning to do this since I was 18 type of deal as well. But yeah, putting it in a Roth 401k or a Roth IRA, because that we would want to take it out at some later date.
And the Roth are the ones that you pay taxes in advance.
Yes, you pay taxes up front versus a traditional where you pay taxes once you withdraw at retirement.
All right. So y'all heard that. We had about $220,000 that we had access to when we moved here. How long did it take us to make money?
Well, how long did it take you to make money? Well, it depends on from when we left. What do you count as making money?
I'm counting money.
Which niches, and we have a lot of different variables for both of us. So it really kind of, I would say from when we left DC to when you made money. So what's that? Let's just say.
We made money in December of last year.
Right.
And we moved here in April. So that's what? June, July, August, September, October, November. So about 6 months. It took us 6 months to generate income. What happened in those 6 months? Why were you not sustaining your household?
Why was I not?
Why were you not being a provider?
It's hard. From somebody who's done past businesses, who's also have a startup app business. I don't have a startup anymore. It's been a few years, but we even raised some capital, about $250,000 for our app business. So I know it's a struggle. That's a long journey, and if you're doing something on your own, trying to build it up, you got to learn the ropes, and that means you're responsible for everything. So that means you got to know sales, marketing, you got to know how to talk to customers, copywriting, you got to know how to do your website, technology, all that type of stuff. So there are steps to go through it, and so I knew a lot of the stuff, but I just had to learn it for myself and go through it. And going through that process, I was really able to find out what it is that I'm good at doing and what I can do for a while that I won't get tired of, and it's going to continue to inspire me to do great work for my clients. And when I started, I was doing digital marketing, working with consultants and agile trainers, and that was cool, but didn't necessarily get the fulfillment and joy that I wanted out of doing that work with them. So I did a couple pivots. So that's what took me a little bit to get to a point where I got to working with Black male millennials and other millennials with my coaching work.
So you mentioned the startup, but the startup is not a project that's only yours.
Right.
So I know you mentioned how much money you had made and all this other stuff. I just want to give people context that we didn't have those coins.
No, that was a business, and I have owned part of the business, but there are other partners. I have 3 or 4 other partners in the business. Right. Yeah.
And that's money that we haven't had access to, nor did we need to have access to.
Yeah. Anyway, no, so. we all the team put all the money back into the business.
Yeah. So we go through this journey. We come here for 6 months. And I think when we were here at first, I started getting some anxiety around the fact that we weren't making money. And I think I talked to you about this at some point. I think I asked you if you were having some of these feelings because I felt like I needed to rush myself in my process so that we can make money, because we were like, yo, we need to make money. And then I remember you telling me, actually, we don't need to make money. You don't need to stress yourself over this. We have bandwidth. Let's use it and let's figure out what is it that we want to do so that we can do it well and we don't have to do it twice. So just take your time. And at the time, I really remember valuing that, because I don't think I've ever had the time and the space and the permission and the availability to just, I'm going to figure me out real quick. Like, that was the first time I've ever had that. Had you had that before? I feel like maybe
I had never even thought to take the time to do it, because I've pretty much been on this treadmill of go from one thing to the next, got to achieve that next step of the ladder, and had never really taking the time to say, okay, what is it that I want for myself? Yes, I do like doing all these things, right, but it's just the exact path that I want to take.
Right. How important would you say that is?
Which part?
Taking that time for yourself.
Oh, man, I wish everybody needs to do it. Unfortunately, we work so much, and when we get off work, we got family to deal with, and then it's hard to take that time, because when you start looking inside yourself for some of these answers, you're going to pull out some stuff that you may not want to face.
Hey, now.
And the only way you actually grow is to actually uncover those things and face them. But that can be hard. So even when people do have the time, they're like, I'm not looking under that rug. It's going to stay hidden or whatever that is. So, for me, challenges, I want to get to know more about myself, and I just love learning. So when through our training and, the learning we've been doing, where it's like, the more you learn about yourself, the more you can learn about your customers and vice versa. So it's like, okay, well, it's time to do a deep dive on JP. So I don't know how many personality books we've been reading over the past year.
I think combined we've hit 100 books.
Yeah, particularly about like personality books about, how we relate to other people, our tendencies.
I would say at least 10. And there's more in the queue.
Right.
So we move here. We're sorting things out, taking our time. And I want to say one of the things that I struggled with when we first moved here was adjusting to not having to be at work. Did that happen to you?
Pretty sure in some aspect I had to really get used to. Nah, I didn't. Nah, I didn't. I was ready. I pretty much really self-driven and can get myself up to do things. So not having someone, I think I've actually talked to you just earlier, I don't do well with hierarchies. So if I'm like at the bottom rung, I'm probably going to make trouble from somebody else up the line because I'm structured, but I'm creative, if that makes any sense.
It doesn't.
So that just means I have a lot of ideas that I want to implement, and I will go look at somebody else's area and be like, here are the problems. Let's fix them, when people didn't really ask for those questions.
Anybody asked you
to do that stuff, right?
Thirsty.
So
thirsty to solve problems.
So yeah, I was ready. And next time, I've always been planning to do it. So just thought I would probably do it a little bit later, but this actually was right on time.
Okay. So we could probably delve into this topic deeper in the second part.
Can we go deep?
Who sings that song? Because that's relevant.
Blackstreet.
Okay. We can probably go deeper into this topic during the second part of this conversation. But I know people that are part of my tribe ask me about why have we not dropped something together? Why have you not worked with your wife?
We do work together.
Yes.
But we have a different working relationship than those couples that you see that are out front together. We both have, I guess, comes back to this creative part again. We both like to see our ideas made to be put out there, and when both people want to go in different directions, and
both people can't have creative control, yes. That's what he's saying. Both people cannot have,
and I put that in the post,
creative control, and there's no such thing as shared creative control either. So it's either he got it or I got it,
right? And we did podcasts. We recorded a number of episodes,
and
together.
We didn't even release those.
I've been going back, taking some tidbits from there.
You've been listening to them?
Yeah, there's some good stuff in there for what I'm doing now.
Oh, of course. You're welcome. I'm going to send you my invoice.
What you mean? I put together all that information.
I don't care. I'm a part of it. I'm going to send you my invoice.
Fine. I'll give you my debit card.
The only reason why you're giving me the credit card or the debit card is because it's the same one I got, so the money coming from the same place.
Exactly. También.
So we could get a little deeper into how JP and I got into the conclusion that working together in the traditional sense, it's not what works for us. But we do work together. You always say that we have an incubator of two here in our house because we do similar work, but still very different work at the same time.
Right.
And we work with clients, and we are able to talk about the lessons we're learning from our clients. So I mean, we do it, y'all. We just don't do it in the way that y'all want us to do it. Okay, that's really what it is. We do it in a way that we can stay married. That's what I'm saying.
That is true. Very true. And I like her married more than working. So
I bet you do. So we go through this journey, and if y'all have questions about anything in this episode, please share them with me on Instagram at Nori Pouncil or email nori@iamhealthyfit.com, and then we will fill in some of these things in another part if JP decides to grace me with his presence again. But I wanted to ask you, we go through all of this. You have been a part of I'm Healthy Fit for years. since its inception, you've been around, and now you bought this course, right? To kind of take you on how we got to this making money part a little bit. I know we're bouncing around, but you get this course. You start doing it. I start on the sidelines, not messing with it because that's how I am. That's my rejection, and then we get to the point where we started actually making money from this course that you bought that I didn't want to do, but I did somehow, and now we're getting paid, or by we, of course, I mean me. But how was it seeing it come full circle from when I was in that now that state of depression to where I am now? Like, how has that part been? Because I wanna shed some light on that too with the listeners.
Your journey. So when we first got together, I think I told you, hey, I got some stuff I'm trying to do. Mm-hmm. I don't really care if you are an entrepreneur, if you just want to, work or whatever. Just can I get some time to focus on my stuff? So when you turned and started doing I'm Healthy Fit and all this stuff, I'm like, all right, bet. I get to learn from all the stuff she's doing. I get to see how things work from her perspective. And, it's probably been even before we were married, we had our little incubator going when we were still living in DC, because you were learning a lot of new stuff and learning about webinars and landing pages and all that. And I had done some of that stuff, but some of that stuff was new to me too. So it was just great to be able to experience that and have somebody else who was learning in the same environment. And then, once you did go through your bout with depression, I just knew that you just needed the time to work through it, that your work with I Am Healthy Fit was a passion. You weren't necessarily looking to make a whole bunch of money to get started. You just loved doing the stuff for your friends.
Apparently I was looking to make zero money. That's how much I was making. Because that's how much I was making. I'm not going to lie. I made a few dollars here and there, but if we going to be real about it, zero money.
Yeah, but as we know, it's not always about the money you make from the experiences.
Not at all.
It's about what you learn. And we wouldn't be here today without I Am Healthy Fit's humble beginnings and launch parties in New York City.
I know. Do you remember those days?
Yeah.
Classic.
So yeah, with the depression, it was just, allowing you the space to figure out your way through it. I didn't necessarily have the answers, so I wasn't trying to prescribe them. And it was something I had learned probably more recently, that I couldn't solve all your problems, or I couldn't even try to solve your problems, because sometimes people don't need you to solve their problem. They just want you to listen. So that was probably one of the big lessons around this. So that was really helpful for me going and working with you during that time.
Mm-hmm. I have two final questions for you.
We didn't finish. You got to get to about the course.
Oh, they gonna get that in part 2.
That's part 2? All right.
That's part 2, y'all. We gonna get into that part 2. Stop saying things when I'm trying to remember my questions, bro. What's going on?
Get a better
here?
memory, girl.
Gosh. The first question I'm not doing this with you in 2019. And not on the Health Conscious podcast.
It's too late.
Either.
It is 2019.
Like, I'm not doing this on the podcast.
You need me to read the script so you can know your question?
Give my paper back. Listen, first of all, give me that. I can't. Y'all hear this? Out of control, out of order. The first question I have for you is, what advice would you give couples that might have a partner that's struggling with depression, or might know someone that needs some help? From your experience, what kind of advice would you give them? I
would say you have to first take into consideration what type of person your spouse is when you're delivering, even trying to inquire about what's going on. So coming in with no assumptions about how that person feels. And I think I mentioned it. Yeah, I did mention it earlier. Just not trying to solve the problem. Just really have a listening ear and ask them, how can you help them? Because if they know, they're going to know the best way. Sometimes they don't know. And so that's when, you ask them, do they need your help, or do you need my help in figuring that out? And if they don't, kind of, you got to let them go on their own route. But you can also do or get more education on your part, so that when they do or are ready to talk about it, that you can have more education and be ready to have that conversation. And then you can lend those helpful tips and things when they're more open to that feedback, because they've had a chance to get over that initial barrier of communication.
Mm-hmm. Did you do any research when I was going through depression?
I'm pretty sure that's what led me to start reading a lot more about personality and tendencies, and trying to understand why. it was around the same time we were still working together too, or trying to do the podcast, together. So I was really just trying to figure out, what was the best way for us to live in our relationship with some of the, at the time, expectations we had around how we would operate in the household and who was responsible for what. So, I just love learning about you. And although, I don't wish anyone to go through that journey, but there were still lessons that we got from the other side of it.
Mm-hmm. Would you say that now that I'm on the other side, would you say I'm a better wife to you?
Yes.
Why?
You understand more about me and how to communicate with me so that I can understand what you're going through. And then I also think you're better at, if you don't think you're going to be able to get through, or you're not going to be able to communicate, that you had learned how to communicate with me better. And when you maybe didn't know how to communicate something to me, you were also able to now be like, okay, I know that I can't communicate this, so let me communicate that to him, instead of, the communication not being there at all, or me being totally clueless. Because when we don't have information, our minds, we tend to fill in gaps with the bad stuff. So just communicating like, hey, I just need some time to go through XYZ, that could be very helpful for others who are trying to support you.
Mm-hmm. And what would you say is one thing that you're grateful for when it comes to this journey? I know it's been a painful journey for me, and at times I felt like it was a challenging journey for our marriage, because I didn't know how to talk about my feelings and the things I was dealing with. Why would you, is there a reason why you feel grateful for that? And if so, like, what is that?
I'm just grateful to get to experience other people's emotions. I don't have lots of swings in my emotions. I'm pretty happy most of the time. I don't, if I get down, it's a day or a few hours or half the day. I'm not trying to stay in that position. So that, it's a positive for me, because I don't have to go through it. But then on the flip side, I don't relate to other people's emotions and things they're going through at times. So I may seem a little bit more robotic, but that's just because I'm not susceptible to some of that anxiety that other people's are in certain situations.
And for many, many years, I felt that there was an element of you that was emotionally unavailable to me as a partner.
I've definitely been called that as well. And from my readings recently, it's like, or not my readings, doing my personality tests, one that Jordan Peterson had done, and showing that, you're just the person, like, I'm in the 1 percentile of people who just get knocked off by different emotions and anxiety and stress, things like that. I just always been able to get through it.
Somehow I found you. You look at that. Yeah. The one person that used to get triggered the most easily, found the person that rarely gets triggered at all. Look at that.
And even, we still had that conversation when we moved here to Florida about me being able to be honest, or feeling like I could be completely honest with you about certain things around that kind of same subject. I don't know if that's for this podcast or for the next one. That's
for the next episode. We're going to talk about why JP didn't sing me happy birthday. Would you say that now do you feel like you can be honest with me now?
Yeah.
That's crazy. Now you feel like you can be honest with me. We've been together for how many years?
7, something like that.
Going on 8 years. And just now you feel like you can be
totally honest
with me.
Yeah.
Good. I mean, I haven't always felt like I could be totally honest with you. We just went through a whole conversation of how I was struggling with depression and didn't say anything to you. So I get it. Well, thank you. I really appreciate you.
Are we done? First take? We out of here?
I mean, what else do you want to tell the people? I don't want to shut you down if you got something else you want to say.
We can talk about your up-and-coming DJ career.
No, we're not going to get into my up-and-coming DJ career. Although I do want you to know that in a few years, I am going to become a DJ. So just be on the lookout for that project. So more on my DJ career later.
All right, we'll hold back on that one.
We are avid readers, and I think we would be, doing a disservice to the listeners if we didn't walk away with leaving a recommendation. I usually ask my guests to share with me a resource.
I gotta come with one.
a resource that has been indispensable to their self-care.
Oh, indispensable. Okay.
Indispensable.
All right.
What do you have to give to the people?
May have mentioned this on your podcast last season, but
maybe
my go-to is The 4 Tendencies
I did not mention the
You
4
didn't.
tendencies.
All right. Well, there you go. So yeah, the 4 tendencies
Tell
is
us about the 4 tendencies.
by Gretchen Rubin, and it deals with how we deal with internal and external expectations. How do you deal with the stuff that other people want you to do, and how do you deal with the things that you want to do yourself? And reading that book made a big difference in our relationship. And I also read that book during that time.
You did.
You were going through, the depression, and this book so there are 4 tendencies. By the title, you can see that. So Yunori's tendency is a rebel, which means...
Why you got to start with my tendency?
Because it's
like,
important
ain't you the one talking about it?
The story.
Okay.
And me understanding you. So I already knew that I couldn't tell my wife anything. She's independent. And I actually really like that about her, because I have to tell everybody else what to do. I don't need to want to tell my wife what to do. And I like people who are independent and kind of do their own thing. So it's a gift and a curse, because when I actually do want her to do stuff, it doesn't happen. So
Cardi B tongue out.
Right. Right. So, at that time we were working together, and we had household chores and really trying to figure out, who was going to be responsible for whatever. And
I was also going through depression.
Right.
This is
the whole point of the conversation.
This is important. This is an important piece.
So for me, when I read the book and found out that you were a rebel, which in context of this story, that means that you reject outer expectations. So anything that, anybody asks you to do, you initially reject. And me, I relate to that, because in the tendency, I'm a questioner, but we share that we reject outer expectations, which is part of the reason I liked you.
Which is interesting, because I say yes a lot.
Not to me.
No, but I do. Like, I do say yes to a lot of things.
For people, if you feel like you truly love them, you'll do it for your parents. Yeah.
It's crazy.
You ain't doing it for these hoes, though.
I'm not. We also don't use that language in the podcast. We'll have to edit that out.
All right. Take 2.
So I'm a rebel. And when you brought this book into the household, how did I respond?
As a rebel, when I recommended it, she was like, I don't want nothing to do with this book.
Well, I don't want to say in my defense, but as already been said, I was still struggling with depression, and I just wasn't available for what this book had for me yet. It triggered a lot of things within me. And at that time, I had stopped seeing the therapist, and I was taking matters into my own hands to heal myself. And here you come with this book, and I really think that it wasn't the book, it was your presentation of the book to me, as he usually tends to be. JP has this personality where he's like, I have all the answers. Here they are. Trust me. And I'm like, I don't know who this Gretchen chick is. Like, she don't know me. She don't know where I'm at. She never been to the Bronx.
I don't think you like being called a rebel either.
And I didn't like being called a rebel, because I felt that it was kind of insulting a little bit. Like, the way it was presented to me, I just was like, I don't like this. I don't like nothing to do with this. Y'all make it seem like rebels are the worst.
This is the best information I ever got. Guess what? I'm never trying to tell you how to do anything ever again.
And he did it.
And it works wonderfully. I just do it myself. And we have, for example, if there's dishes in there and I'm like, why didn't you do this? It's like, that's not the question. You do ask yourself, why didn't you just go do them? Because you can get it done.
Accountability for yourself.
Yeah, if you start taking accountability and not looking outside, particularly at people who aren't going to say yes anyway,
But I do want to say that although you started that way, now I do the dishes.
Yeah, it has to be on your own will, and has to be because you want to do it, not because somebody else. But you also have to be careful with that one too, because then if you want to do something and someone else tells you, "Oh, I want you to do that," you have to still do it and not rebel against it.
I know. It's quite the journey, but this book, The 4 Tendencies by Gretchen Rubin, it's a really great book. It's actually now, after saying all of that and all the things I had against the book, now I recommend it to all of my clients as I'm helping women, I would say, unpack and unload their emotional baggage and walking them through that pain that I went through, because it's very painful to face these things. I mean, you and I talked about it earlier in the podcast. It can be really hard to unpack these things because some of this stuff, we don't even think that's who we are. We are convinced we are magnificent beings that are perfect, and everything that we do is, the tier of unicorns or something like that. I don't even know how to say it. But the fact that there are some parts of us that are messy and that are ugly and that cause a lot of pain, that are hurtful, can be really tough to come to terms with. And that's the only way we can change those things, is by coming to terms with those things. So working with my clients, I highly recommend that book. Like, I actually tell them to get it all the time, and they have purchased it so they can read about themselves and they can use it as a tool to help empower them and live the life that they want to live. A lot of us think of that as a judgment because we think that there's something wrong with being labeled as a rebel. And now that I've embraced my rebelness, I'm just like, bring it on. Like, I'm here for it all day, every day.
Exactly.
I don't care.
Embrace it. I use it with my clients as well. We have at least one session where we talk about their tendencies. So you're a rebel. I'm a questioner.
Yep.
There's also an upholder and obliger part of the tendencies. And most of my clients tend to be rebels or obligers because those are the type of clients who need more accountability. As rebels, you have a lot of ideas and you really just need someone to bounce them off of so you can see them clearly and kind of put things in order. You know what you want to do. You just need to figure out the correct order, how to get there. So what I do in my practice is I help people put strategies around their tendencies to help them be successful in business. So if there are things that they don't want to do on a consistent basis that are repetitive, for example, for you as a rebel, we teach them, okay, you got to give yourself some options. You can't say, I'm going to work on this one thing, because when it comes time to do that, you're not going to want to do it. So give yourself a couple other things that you can maybe do, because a lot of time it's more about your spirit and what you feel like doing as opposed to going down the list and knocking things out.
Okay. Final question. I know I've said that maybe like 3 times.
Do I have any lifelines left?
Question.
Can I phone a friend?
No. Final question for you. What are the things that you have noticed that are indispensable to my self-care? What are the things that you're like, she needs to do that? No.
You need to meditate.
Okay.
You need to go get your nails and feet done. And be pampered a little bit.
I do.
Need to work out.
Oh, yeah, I do.
Whatever that workout is you're doing at the moment, but you need to do that to make sure that when you look at yourself in the mirror that you're seeing and you approve of what's going on.
I need to be thin so I can love myself. Not thin, but not what I was, clearly.
Right. You have a standard. So you just want to maintain that standard.
Okay.
And spend the time with your boo.
I was about to say, you're not putting yourself on the list? Okay.
I'm not first all the time. Just most of the time.
You're not first any of the times. I'm first. Thank you for acknowledging that meditation is the number one thing that I need to be doing all the time. So, Mr. Ponsel, thank you.
Like I said, I'll be here all week. We're doing another show in a couple of weeks.
Lord. Yes, part 2 of this conversation will be released later. And in that conversation, we're going to get into this course that JP was talking about. And we're going to get into what was coming next for 2019 for us as a couple, and what Mr. Ponce is going to be doing with his life. So I don't know. In case y'all know somebody that need him, y'all can holler at him. Keep him busy.
Other than working with customers and living my life to the fullest. I don't know, man.
Living your life. Listen, it's been really great being married to you, bro.
Yeah. What are we at now? Like 10, 20 years?
It feels like it. It feels like it. You're my homie. Like you're my boo.
Yeah, man. When we go out, we get that energy, man. Every time we step out while we're here in Florida, somebody's like, I just had to meet you. It's happened like the last 3 times. It's crazy. Like, I just came to get some air.
No, I was trying to like breathe. Thanks. No pictures, please.
Trying not to work. Trying to escape.
It's been great to be a partner and to go through this journey, because I feel that when I was in it, I felt like I was alone. But at the same time, I understand that I needed to go through that on my own. And now, because of that experience, I can show up for me. And as a result of that, I can show up for you. So it's been amazing to go through this. And a lot of times people ask me if, when I say that I can find gratitude in everything, do I mean also the death of my uncle, the murder of Khalifa? And I tell them that yes, that I can find gratitude in that too. And it's not to say that I wish he was dead. I don't. Khalifa and I were really close. And as I learned last month, he was the person that loved me unconditionally throughout my entire life. And that was something that I learned last month as I was reflecting on my life, reflecting on my relationship with him, and doing some of that digging that I talk about, like as I did that work myself. And I miss him dearly, but I'm grateful that out of so much pain came this moment. And I find gratitude in knowing that even after his death, I'm still growing and I'm still learning. And sometimes when people pass away, we just think about how much it hurts us, but we rarely start to think about how much he blessed us. And death has to happen so we can create space for new. We can create space for growth. So
as long as you're not dead, you can get back up and we can fix it.
At least
that's what I believe. We can fix it. If you're dead, I ain't figured that one out yet, but anything else, we gonna do it.
So thank you, Mr. Ponce. We will have you on the next conversation. We will discuss with your team.
Excited. Yeah, excited. I'll make sure my team is available.
Your team is available. First of all, let me tell you something before JP leaves. He's such a diva guest. Like, he came in my office, like he's just a diva of a guest. But I digress. Thank you, Ponce, and until next time.
Thanks, babe.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Get Unstuck podcast. I know you have endless options you can listen to while driving, working out, riding the train, or cooking your favorite meal. I truly appreciate that you've decided to spend your time with me. I hope today's conversation left you feeling a little less stuck and empowered to take action towards becoming the woman that you want to be. If you found today's episode helpful, please show us some love by leaving us a 5-star or 6-star review on Apple Podcasts. You can also find us on Spotify, Stitcher, or Google Play. To get a show notes, head to IamHealthyFit.com and make sure you join the mailing list. You'll get access to a free training video to help you overcome your paralysis, get out of your head, and love yourself no matter what, starting today. If you want to keep the conversation going, you can find me on Instagram at Nori Pouncil. That's NORYPOUNCIL. Hasta luego.